A steamy new book is headed for your local bookstore, bound to be a huge beach book. Hollywood Wives: The New Generation is the latest novel by renowned author Jackie Collins. It's full of beautiful people, fast-moving plots, sex, power, struggles, all taking place in Hollywood. Jackie Collins, welcome back. Always good to have you here.
Matt. It's always good to be here.
Someone described this, I was reading something, called it the raunchy new book by Jackie Collins, and I thought, that's not nice. And then I thought, maybe you don't mind that.
I don't mind that. I mean, I've been described as all kind of things. My
tawdry.
writing. No, not tawdry. Come on, Matt. It's kind of like, I want people to have fun with my books. There's so many serious things going on in the world. I want them to pick up Hollywood Wives: The New Generation, find out a little bit about the women in Hollywood and have a good time with it. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's like entertainment.
Yeah, nobody wants this to be an intellectual journey. That's not what you're writing this for.
Exactly. I'm writing about women in Hollywood today, as opposed to the women I wrote about in the 80s, and they're very different.
Let's talk about that. 1983, Hollywood Wives, it was the first. Now we are almost 20 years later.
Exactly.
Have Hollywood Wives changed, or has Jackie Collins changed?
No, I think the Hollywood Wives have changed.
Why?
I think I'm still the observer that goes to all the parties and sits in the background and watch what goes on, because I've written about the new women, and they are very different, and I actually like them. You know, they're much more powerful. They got fed up with being behind the guy, pushing him forward, getting him into a position of power. Now they want to be up front. They want to be the movie stars. They want to have the production companies. And some of them don't want to have babies because it'll ruin the perfect figure. But there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way they feel.
Some of them adopt children.
They adopt children,
right.
Or they have, you know, a little bit of his sperm, their eggs, put it in a blender, and you have a baby with a surrogate mother.
Don't you think, though, that women and people in Hollywood have become less fun to write about? Let me make the point here, in that it used to be it was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and abusing your body and partying till late at night. Now it's about spinning class and nutritionists and yoga. And is that as interesting?
And underneath all that, there's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Trust me, Matt, it's still going on. I mean, my characters are very interesting women. There's Lissa Roman, who's a big movie star, and she is like the definitive Hollywood wife who is her own boss because she has all the money. She also has a 19-year-old daughter, Nikki, who is torn between these two producers. One is a good boy, one is a bad boy, and she doesn't know which one to go with. And then there's Taylor, who's married to a genius Oscar-winning producer and is having an affair with a 22-year-old out-of-work screenwriter. And you think there's no drugs and sex and rock and roll?
Well, at least they're in your mind. I know that. You only brought back one character from Hollywood Wives, right?
Montana.
And you turned her into a bisexual.
Yeah, because that's very, you know, very in today.
It's very hip
It's very
now.
happening in Hollywood. Well, a lot of women who've been in Hollywood for some time get fed up with the men. I mean, things go on in Hollywood. There's like parties every week. They have these special parties where all the older guys gather, and they have all this batch of girls brought in. This is true. And the girls are like 18 or 19. And I was having lunch with this group of women the other day, and we were talking about this, and one of the women said, "Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because my daughter came home the other day, and she said, 'Mom, I was at this party, and there were all these old guys, Dad's friends, and I don't know what I was doing there.'"
This happens, this is commonplace?
Yeah. And, you know, you talk about drugs. I mean, there's lots of drugs going on in Hollywood still. And I think that somebody has to write about it, so it's going to be me.
All right, Lissa Roman, how many pages into the book does she have until she has sex?
She has got a cheating husband. Okay,
right.
You want
but
to talk about
how far
men?
into the book does she? Because is there a rule? Do you have a rule that you have when you write a book? Do you say, okay, I'm on page 16, no one's had sex yet, we got to throw a sex scene in here?
Wait a minute, do you have a rule in your life?
No,
that you haven't
but
had sex
I'm not
in
trying to
7
sell
days?
books about this stuff.
No, but I don't say, oh, we've got to have sex on page 16. That would be ridiculous. I mean, my characters have a life of their own, and when I'm writing them, they have sex when they feel like it, not when I feel like it.
But you are them.
This is true. I hadn't thought about that before. I am them.
So it turns out to be when you feel like it.
No. They have this kind of interesting life. For instance, Taylor, who's trying to be a good wife to this guy who's obviously 20 years older than her, as most husbands are in Hollywood.
Right.
She is trying to be the good wife, but she can't help having sex with this great-looking 22-year-old out-of-work screenwriter who happens to score $1 million by selling a screenplay. It's all true life.
What do you think about what's happened in the past year in Hollywood? Some of the stories that have captured our attention, the breakup of Tom and Nicole, Meg and Dennis Quaid. I mean, what kind of captures your fascination about those things?
I think it's very tough to be married to a star. There's never a balance. They're never equal, you know, and usually people go with the famous person when the divorce comes. So it's like Hollywood Wives all over again. When the divorce comes, they go with the famous person.
Well, so
but I think it's
what
the
if they're both famous? What if they're both famous, like Tom and Nicole?
Well, they're both famous, but they're not level. I mean, you know, Tom's career is here and Nicole's is here. I mean, she's got a great career, but it's not Tom's career. And you know the temptations there are, but you come home every night. Well, you do, Matt.
turning
You're
this to
traveling
me
all over
all
the
of a
place.
sudden.
No, but you know there's temptations. So you
Sure.
can imagine being on a fantastic, sexy island with a beautiful woman for 3 weeks and your wife
No,
isn't
no,
there.
not
you can't
these
imagine
days,
that,
I
huh?
can't. No, not
Oh,
at
I see.
all.
Oh, you're having a baby any minute, aren't you?
Any minute
so
is
exciting.
right.
Your life will change. You
For
will
the
not
better.
be the same person. For the better,
Everybody
of course.
says that.
You will not have any sleep.
Oh, God, I don't have any sleep now.
Well, you can stay up and read Hollywood Wives, The New Generation.
I was just going to say that, and you have a way of getting it in there so often. It's great. Jackie Collins,
Pardon?
Hollywood Wives, the new generation,
that.
ready for the beach this summer. Jackie, always great to have you here.
And it's always great to be here. Thank you, Matt.
It's a pleasure. 8:17 up next. We're going to do a little bowling in the plaza. Jackie, do you bowl?
Of course not.
I didn't think
I'm
so.
English, but it's fine.
Right after this.